This video was published by mbkpinternational.com. In this video we're going to talk about replacing the infrared sensor boards. They go in here on this Guillotine XPC19 PRO, and you'd be replacing them potentially if you're getting F1 sensor faults, and I'll show you what that looks like. That's an F1 sensor fault. Before we get started, I just want to mention a couple things that could be triggering it. Obviously, if anything is in here, like there's grease smeared on one of these holes here, it would cause an F1 sensor fault, or tape over one of them. So you got to make sure this is nice and clean and free from anything. I took the sticker off already on this side, so it's off of it, but this is just a sticker. And you just got to make sure it's free from anything that's any debris or anything, or make sure nothing, like if you had some paper hanging out halfway here, it would trip that. So if you'd have to use this switch on the side to disable these bottom ones if you had paper hanging out. So anything gets in here, it's going to cause that F1 sensor fault. So the other thing is if direct sunlight, if you got a cutter in a position where direct sunlight is shined in here, it potentially could cause F1 sensor faults. So stay away from direct sunlight and don't have anything in here at all. First thing we're going to want to do is remove these stickers if you're having F1 sensor faults after we go past, if you didn't have a direct sunlight problem or anything. But so I already removed on this side. I'm just going to remove it here, and they're just stickers that come off. And once you remove it, you can what I would do next is start using the cutter again to see, because a lot of times, half the time, just removing those stickers will fix your F1 sensor fault problem. So remove your stickers and then start using your cutters. If you continue to get F1 sensor faults, then you can move on to the next step, which is basically to open these things up and potentially adjust your boards. And we're going to do that right now. We're going to open these up here, and I took some screws out already, but there's 7 screws on this side and 7 on the other one. So we're going to go ahead and pause it right now until we do that. Okay, I went ahead and removed these screws. This one's just hanging on here. So once the 7 screws are removed, you tool this out. The only thing that's connected is this right here. I would unplug it from the board. I'm going to go ahead and turn this off for now, this cutter. You can even unplug it from power, be best. And just remove that. You don't need this on for any of the tests of anything you do. All this is for is to disable the bottom 2 for cutting paper that's hanging out. You don't need it on there for it to work properly. There's the board right there, and here's one of the screws there and one of the screws there. We're going to be taking off these screws. Some of these boards have double holes on them and some of them don't. Like, see, there's holes there and there. I would always mark these with a little Sharpie before you take them off, so you can see where they came from, so you can see what hole that was being used. And it looks like it's these here, that one and that one. But always mark it with a Sharpie, the old ones, before you pull it off, and then you can make sure you get in the right hole, because sometimes these have multiple holes to put them in. First thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to loosen this screw up, and it's on this side too. But actually, first you just want to check your sensors. Right here, you can, if you look in there close, you can see the LED. It's actually an infrared bulb almost. You can see it there. They're kind of shining. That one's in this one's in the center. The next one is a little off to the back portion, and so is that one. You can see it right at the edge there of the hole. And that's good. As long as the bulb's showing completely, you're good. But if it's like half cut off, let's just assume this one was half cut off. I'm going to go ahead and loosen this screw here and this screw there. And the nuts for it are on this side, there, and there. So you're going to have to have a screwdriver and maybe a small pair of pliers to hold the nut. So we're going to do that. Let me get a screwdriver. Go ahead and pause it for now. Okay, I went ahead and loosened these. I held the nut on one side and loosened here. Now you can see this board, these things. You got room to just move it however you need to. You want to look at all of them. If this is center, doesn't mean these are center. So there is a little bit up and down and side to side. Sometimes best you can do is right on an edge of a hole, and just depends on a few things on it. But just line it up to make sure all sensors are completely visible as good as possible, if you had one that wasn't, and then tighten them back down, and then you can redo your tests. Same for the other side. You got sensors on this other side too. You can see them coming out the holes there. These are LED sensors, infrared sensors. So just make sure they're all lined up. This one here is just the light. One of these, I think this is, you can see these boards right here. That's the board behind there. And you got 1 infrared sensor, 2, 3, those 3. This is just some LED lights. So the 4th one, all it is LED lights, red or green. It doesn't do anything for a sensor. You got 1 there and 1 there. These 2 don't really have anything in it, at least currently. That could change. Same thing on the other side. If you put these, and these just basically talk to each other. Basically, it tells if anything gets between the two. Just like so. They're one on one side, one on the other. And this is the data wire we'll be replacing it to. It goes between the boards, and you can see it over here. There's a data wire. There you go. I got this board loose now so I can show you, but it goes all the way across to the other infrared board. This is just a power wire to go to the motherboard, and we'll talk about that later. But right now, you're going to make sure your boards are all the infrareds are perfectly in these holes, or as good as possible, at least fully showing the bulbs, and tighten them down good, and then retest again and see if that fixed your problem. If your boards are lined up, if these infrared bulbs are all lined up good in there, and you're still getting, and these stickers are off, and you're still getting the infrared, also make sure these are on here. You know, you got to make sure they're even. Make sure this whole thing is not loose here. This thing here, because there's a couple of nuts in here that tighten it. If they're loose, they could be off, and where it's not perfectly across from one another. It doesn't need to be perfectly across, but it needs to be very close. So if one of these were off, it could shift like this, and then they wouldn't have a direct line of sight. So make sure each side is pretty much even with each other. And if that's the case, then if you're still having F1 sensor faults, we're going to go ahead and replace these boards. And pretty simple, you're just going to unscrew those. And one thing you're going to watch out for is behind this screw here, there's some plastic spacers. So get ready, try not to let those fall. It could potentially fall down into this hole here, into the electronics department. It's not a big deal, we'll be opening that up anyway, but just try to catch your plastic spacers. They'll roll if they hit the floor. Okay, I'll go ahead and pause it. We're going to start removing those. Okay, I got this board loose. I just took those two screws out, two plastic spacers. Here's the plastic spacer behind it. That's behind that goes on the screw behind this board, like right there. And all you're gonna do is unplug this data wire and this other, it's a power and communication wire for the motherboard. So, and then you got your old one here. If you did it with the Sharpie, you should have marked it. I believe it's these two bottom holes. You'll see there's a couple other holes here. Someone might try to put them in. If they put in those, the infrared bulbs are not going to line up correctly. And it looks like there's also two holes here, so looks like you're going to want to mark which one of these come out, but I can tell from this side it's the upper holes. So we're going to take this new one here. I'm not going to install this new one because these are perfectly fine, but you take your new board and you basically just reverse it and install this here. And basically what you're going to do is you're just going to take these two screws, and again it looks like it was the upper holes. Just pay attention. Yours could be the lower, which I doubt it, but just pay attention to where they come out of. And you're going to come over on this side. And all you're going to do is, you get the screws through, and you're just going to put these plastic. I'm holding these screws so they don't come out with my fingers on this other side. Put your plastic spacers on it. Then take your new board. And you can see where it goes here with those three at the bottom. That go down to those. And you're just going to put them in like so. Pretty simple. Take your little nut here, just screw it on, get started. And one more. I'm holding these screws on the back so they don't come out while I'm pushing on this with my other hand. And then start the other one. And now we're back to where we were before, where it's nice and loose, and you can come over here and make sure you line them all up, line all the infrared bulbs up these holes. You know, you can move it around and line it up to whatever hole you need it lined up to. Once they're all lined up, then you can tighten this down. You're going to need to hold it with a pair of pliers on one side and right there. I'm going to go ahead and pause it. I'm going to do that right now. Okay, I went ahead and lined them up and tightened it down real good. You can have one person lined it up and look over here, and then someone else can tighten it down with this Phillips over here and a pair of pliers over here. I'm going to show you something here. I was kind of surprised. I didn't really notice this before. Maybe it's always like that. I had to change it. It wasn't the top hole. It was the bottom holes. So on this side here at least, and yours could be different, so you got to go by yours. And for some reason over here it's the top holes. So I don't know what the deal is with that, but that's the way it was. There was a top hole and a bottom hole. I guess these thicker ones, these bigger ones need the bottom holes, and these smaller ones potentially need the upper holes, I guess, for this side, because over here is the smaller one. It's the same process over here, except it doesn't have those extra wires. You just got the data wire, and that's it. It's a smaller board, so it'd be the same exact process. So I'm just going to do the one side. From there, you're just going to open up this, make sure this thing is unplugged from power, the cutter. You're going to remove it has 6 Phillips screws. You're going to remove these 6 Phillips screws here. You pretty much need a short Phillips screwdriver for this, because you got to get under here like this to get them. And just be careful. I don't know where your blade is at. Just don't cut yourself on your blade. Be careful there. Once you remove those, you can just slide this out like that. Put it to the side somewhere. And basically want to get in here because we want to change this data wire here. Okay, because sometimes it's your data wire. So you're just going to feed this through the hole here. There's a hole here, and you're just going to feed the data wire through it and out. Pretty simple. Just take it out and then put your new data wire. Get your new data. Just don't get them mixed up. Get this out first and put it to the side, and then put your new data wire in here, and you're just going to run it through here. Good idea to run it behind some of these wires on these buttons, so it ain't laying on the board here. It's probably not going to hurt it, but I'd rather keep it in front here. And you run it, and the other one you just come up in here through it. It just goes from one data board to the one infrared board to the next. Just keep it towards the front though if possible. So that's pretty simple. It's kind of self-explanatory in that, replacing your data wire. Once you get the boards, you get your new data wire in there and connect them together. They plug in pretty easy. They only go in one way. It has a little notch on it there, and it has a little notch there. And it just fits right down in there, and you just make sure it's fully plugged in. Seats in there good. Both sides. I actually need to feed this one back through. And then plug it in. The notches right there, the notches there, so I'll do it this way. And then from there, this is the wire that goes to the motherboard. And I'll show you where that wire is up front here. You can tug on it usually to see. You're gonna it's this one right here though. So it doesn't plug, it goes into this channel, then back out to hit this. It actually goes down this one too. This one, some of them just come across here and go into the channel, it just depends. But that's that wire there. And you just plug it in here. Make sure you get all 3 prongs on it. There's 3 prongs. And make sure none of these wires are backing out the top of the plug. And then when you go to put this back on, you do have this one extra wire on this side, and it plugs in right here. Like that. And then from there you just put this on, put your screws back in. Pretty simple. I'll take this off now. Again, do the same thing for the other side. And then once you get it together, you can plug it in and retest, see if that fixed your issue. If that did not fix your issue, we'll move on to the only other thing it could be. Okay, we took these stickers off, and we checked it to see if that fixed your F1 sensor fault. If it didn't, we moved on to potentially make sure these infrared bulbs are all lined up. If they weren't, we adjusted them. And if that didn't fix your problem, we moved on to just replacing both these boards, left and right side, and the data wire that goes between them, that connects the two. And if you're still having the issue, the only other thing it can be, and this is all, these two connect to each other, and it has one wire that goes to this motherboard. So if it's not this data wire, or it's not these 2 boards, it would be this motherboard, and potentially this wire that goes to the motherboard that plugs in right there. So then we have a video on replacing the motherboard. I'm not going to do it here. So your next step, if this does not fix it, and we did all the stuff, you checked everything in this video, your next step would be we'd send you a motherboard and replace this motherboard. And also we'd most likely send you this wire here, and you kind of just push in here and lift up to take those off. And you may have to bend the thing back like that or something, and just get this wire out of here. You can see it going right there. You just gotta basically fish it out. And this one happens to go into this one, and you do the same thing here and just pull this up, take it off, and just bend the prong back that's holding it, and just get it out of there. Because I mean, there's a chance this wire could be, you could check to make sure no wires are coming out of the plug for the board, and on this side too, but basically just be taking this wire out just to make sure it's not that. If we sent you a motherboard for this problem, we'd send you this wire with it too. So you get your new motherboard in, take your old one out, and put your new wire in, just like so. Feed it down in there. And if yours was all connected in these channels, I probably wouldn't even do it. It's not necessary. I would just kind of run it through this one here, like so. Just make sure that when you close this off, make sure they're down in there good into these slots, down low into these slots. You don't want this to pinch them or anything like that. Then you got the wire here, and you can put it back on it. And it says P7 on it, and there should be a if you look closely, a lot of times there's a P7 right in front on the board there. They're kind of numbered themselves. Just make sure you get all 3 prongs on this. Don't miss one. Plugged in good there and plugged in good up there. That's basically it. Well, I went over everything here. Yeah, those are all the possibilities that can cause an F1 sensor fault. Just take your time, and just if you have any questions, you can contact us. This video is published by mbkpinternational.com.